Moving on to the middle of the first round with picks number 16 and 19, no one else I would rather sit down with to talk Saints than also a mutual friend of Evan Silva, NewOrleans.Football's own Nick Underhill. And Nick, ideally, I want to play out every scenario here with you before you have to run, because the Saints are the wrench of the 22 NFL draft. It starts with New Orleans' recent pick swap with the Eagles, right? Because to your knowledge, was that trade the precursor to another trade on night one? Or is Mickey Loomis actually going to sit on his hands and preempt two starters at 16 and 19?
So at the risk of kind of riding the fence here, I don't think it was made with the intent of, okay, we're doing this to go up and now make a trade up in the draft. But I think it's possible that an opportunity materializes where they might go up in the draft. And if the right deal's there, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go up to, say, around number 5. Jeff Ireland hired Schoen at one point in Miami, and the Saints do need an offensive tackle. So if they went up and drafted, say, a Charles Cross, I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they stayed put and picked two starters, because despite what a lot of people think about where this team's at internally, they think that there's still a team that has a chance to make the playoffs. And then once you get into the playoffs, who knows what can happen at that point. So I could see them wanting to draft two starters, but at the same time, if the right values are, they will go up. But I will say this, it's a different team now. And the most aggressive guy in the room is playing golf and not coaching a football team anymore. So I think some of the stuff in their DNA, it could change a little bit. And whereas in the past, it would have been immediately, okay, what are they doing? Are they going up? I think that the guys making the calls now, led by Mickey Loomis, I think he's kind of taken over a little bit more of the decision-making process. He's a little bit more of a calmer, calculated, less emotional type of person. So I think that we might see them do things a little bit differently. And we already have, even with just how they didn't go out and spend every dollar they have under the cap. And that's a major difference right there. So I think they're still going to be aggressive, but not as, all in as they were with Sean Payton leading the charge on some of those decisions.
In that case, let's work backwards. And let's say they stay put with these two picks. We know, as you mentioned, an offensive tackle like Charles Cross, for example, could also just not be there, even if he is the apple of their eye. So what positions other than tackle do you think New Orleans are trying to prioritize with their picks, given that, as you mentioned, they think at least they're in win now mode?
So I think the positions, if they had things fall their way and they make 3 picks, 16, 19, 49, I think it would be wide receiver, offensive tackle, and then safety. I think that's ideally how they would like to have things play out. They have to get a wide receiver. I mean, it's been way too long. 2018, I think, was the last time they drafted one, Traquan Smith. And well, he's a solid player. He's not a difference maker in the sense of, going out and really being a true compliment to Michael Thomas. So they have to get that done. And the way they approached that position last year was, the word that comes to mind is malpractice. I mean, they really, I think, overestimated what they could get done with their scheme. When you took Drew Brees out of it, I don't think things operated quite as well as they kind of assumed it could for a long time. And I think that was a lesson learned last year. And I think this year going into it, I think that has to be a priority. And if they don't get one early, I mean, there's just no excuse for it. You can't go back out there with, no offense to anybody, Kevin White can't be one of your top 3 options, and Kenny Stills can't be one of those guys. So they got to have better true options this year. And I think that has to be priority number 1.
Does the potential signing of Jarvis Landry hinder a receiver with one of those 2 picks or 3 picks, as you mentioned as well, in the 40s? Or does having him in their back pocket not matter whatsoever in how they approach this draft?
So if they were somehow to, sign him at some point, if there was an agreement in place after the draft, whatever it may be, I don't think that should stop them from still getting a young player in that pipeline. I mean, the positional value alone, teams should be going after wide receivers early and often now, because you can't pay three guys 20, 25, $30 million. You got to have 3, 4, 5 of these guys. And especially the way the Saints like to play, they like to use a lot of personnel, and it's not like a static, okay, these are the top 3. They're playing 4 or 5 guys at that position every week. And you just can't pay $90 million on one position or whatever it's going to be if things keep trending the way they are. So I think you got to try to get young players in at that position. And I don't think Landry, like I said, I don't think he should preclude anything, because they have Michael Thomas and it's wide open after him. So I think you need Michael Thomas. I think you need Jarvis Landry. And I think you need, let's say, Chris Olave. And, I think all those pieces would fit together really well, and off you go. But at the same time, if you do get Landry in your pocket, I think it makes it a little bit easier to maybe package a couple of picks and go up and get that offensive tackle to play Teron Armstead.
Is there a particular trait you believe they're looking for in the wide receiver they draft? A speed guy like Jameson Williams, for instance, Treylon Burks, who some would argue is just overlaps his skill set with Michael Thomas. Chris Olave is a field stretcher as well. Anyone that stands out?
I think that Olave would probably be the guy that would probably be the one they target over all of them. I think he would probably be the best fit for this team. They really like guys out of Ohio State. I think his skill set fits really well with what they need. I think his ability to get deep and stretch the field would be something that would really fit well with Jameis Winston. And then also just his general route running ability. I think his best trait, which is better than anybody else's best trait. And granted, there are things about his game that I think need to get better and improve. His play strength isn't quite there. I don't think he's a great blocker. Contested catches could use some work, but I think that's something that you can develop in time, get a little bit stronger. And I think they could maximize his route running ability, play him opposite Michael Thomas. And I think that fit would just be really natural. And they got to get guys that can get open the way he gets open and just make life easier for Jameis Winston.
Let's say a Jameson Williams and Chris Olave are off the board, and the Panthers stick at 6 and end up taking Charles Cross. Cross could also go at 7, of course, to the Giants. But let's say it just doesn't fall the Saints' way, and they do, in fact, stay put. I'm sure you've had fans mention a potential quarterback, at least ask you about that. If it does happen to be the highest player on their board, do you think they'll be in a position where quarterback is the highest player on their board and they take a best player available approach? Or are they actually trying to throw out 2 starters, and so they're not going to worry about the Pickett's, the Malik Willis's of the world?
It's a good question. I think they showed us with their actions that they aren't comfortable necessarily, or I don't want to say comfortable, but they aren't dead set on, okay, Jameis Winston is the guy. Like, they just tried really hard to get another player. They tried really hard to take on the biggest PR hit in NFL history to make a move at quarterback. So to act like Jameis was locked into that position, their actions have already told us that they're comfortable going in another direction, that they might even prefer to go in another direction. So if they like Malik Willis or Kenny Pickett, I think they obviously would definitely make one of those picks. I think you got to prioritize that position over anything else. And they aren't all in on the season. They're being aggressive. They are trying to win. But if they were all in on the season, like when the Saints are all in on a season, it's every dollar stretched. They aren't stretching every dollar. There's $20 million under the cap right now that they could be spending on players that they haven't spent yet. And granted, it could come. They could sign Jarvis Landry. They could sign Tyrann Mathieu after the draft, so he doesn't count against the comp pick formula. So they still might spend some of that money, but it's not that all-in Super Bowl or bust mentality. So if they like one of these guys, and I really think if Sean Payton was the coach, that Kenny Pickett would be the person they're targeting going into this draft. Again, he's not in the building. I think things change. He was on, whispering to people that he didn't like Deshaun Watson as the Saints quarterback. So they're doing things differently than him. But I know he really liked Kenny Pickett. And I think, there's probably people in the building that think very similarly to him still. So I'm sure there's still people that like him. And, I don't know if it would be number one priority, but I think it's something that would be tough to pass up if one of those guys are there, because they do need to get – look, if you don't have a quarterback on a 5-year contract, or you're not trying to sign one to a 5-year contract, you don't have your quarterback, and they aren't in that position with Jameis right now. So if there is somebody, I think that they do need to try to make that move.
You can only give Taysom Hill $40 million so many years before you have to look elsewhere. On the Saints moving up, you already mentioned Charles Cross. Is that certainly position, like the idea they are replacing Teron Armstead if they move up? Or is there another position, another player, for example, like an Ike Ekwonu over Charles Cross? Or do you think they're locked in with that player and position if they were to move up?
If they were to move up, I think it would be the position. I just kind of threw a name out there. That's just kind of my guess. If they moved up, I think that would probably be the guy. But I think that any of them. I mean, I think it's an important position as well, and I think they'd be okay. It's a manageable situation with James Hurst there, but I think with Jameis as the quarterback, they need to do more play action. They need to have longer developing plays, and you got to be able to block those well. And kind of just being weak at that position, and they're weak at the other guard position opposite with Cesar Ruiz. Having 2 out of 5 spots that are kind of iffy, and then a quarterback who, he made better decisions last year, but he needs to keep showing that, just kind of making it easy for him to make those good decisions, I think needs to be a priority. So as much as they need a wide receiver, I think getting strong at tackle is, I wouldn't say it's a must, but it's right below there at like an extreme want, I think, for this team. So I think going up, doing that, taking care of it would be a smart thing. And I think it would just help everybody just kind of settle down and play a little bit better.
Well, Nick, like everyone else that has come on this pod, I unfortunately have to also put you on the spot and ask what you believe the Saints are going to do when it comes to them at 16 and 19, whether it is make a trade or the 2 players they select.
It's a good question. I don't got the trade value chart in front of me, so I don't know like how high they could actually go up. So I'll make 2 picks. I'll say Olave at 16, and then I'm going to predict something that they never do. And then if it just hits, like we can replay this clip and act like something.
7
like
days. We're all forgiving. Don't worry.
Yeah. So I'm going to say at 19, they move back and they get Penning. Like Penning falls down into the 20s and they get them there, pick up like a 3rd round pick or something and just kind of restock the shelves a little bit that way. But if they do trade up, I guess you'd probably have to take both picks and get the 5 to get one of the top tackles. So I will say if they do trade up, it's a trade with the Giants and they take Cross.
I was lying. I have to be greedy and ask, would they take Penning over Pickett in your mind?
That's tough.
I like that at least we've honed it down. Like we have now, like 3 to 5 players we're certain they're going for. It's just a matter of whether they stay put or move up for one. And that's
you're more certain about who they're going for than I am. But if they I don't think they love Penning in that range. I don't know that's the Senior Bowl. I don't know. I mean, but I guess if he's okay there, what's really the difference? But teams get weird about value. I think they should go Pickett over Penning, honestly. And I just think you got to go long term. You got to look at the big picture, and I think that he has a chance to be good in this offense. I think the way he plays would fit really well with some of the stuff that. Well, now Pete Carmichael would like to do. So I guess I would go Olave and Penning if I had to choose between the 3 guys. But I think they would probably make the opposite decision and go Olave and Penning.
You heard it here first. Saints are unequivocally, without question, drafting Kenny Pickett and Chris Olave. Nick Underhill, NewOrleans.Football. We appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining, everyone. Remember, all of these interviews will be spliced together on our feed at The Most Accurate Podcast, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. So until then, draft day. We won't be back with an actual episode next week. We will instead be spinning our first round live show, reaction show at the time of the draft into the podcast as audio. So we'll still talk to you next week. Until then, good luck. See you soon.